Hey guys, what's up? It's Ali from Shahani Motors, and today we're going to be talking about the ZX6R versus the ZX1000, ZX10R. So as you guys know, I had the ZX6R before, and very recently I acquired the ZX10. Both of them were 2016, and you know, a lot of times when you own a ZX6R, you're always wondering, hey, what's it like? What would it be like to own a 1000? Or you know, what's the difference between the ZX10 and the ZX6R? And this actually goes for a lot of 600s, not just the Kawasaki. I'm making on Kawasaki is because that's what I know. That's what I've had. So again, both bikes were 2016. So I'm just going to walk over a few things that were comparison. The ZX6R actually did sell. I've had both. Surprisingly, here's the thing. I wasn't sure which way I wanted to go because I love my ZX6R so much. I was so comfortable with that bike, and I had it completely set up for myself. So I was not sure which way I wanted to go, so I listed both bikes for sale, the ZX10 and the ZX6. And I said, whichever one sells first, I'm going to keep the other one. But the way it worked out, the ZX6 sold first. So here we are. We're with the ZX10 now, and we're going to start doing a build on it. I'm going to do a series on it, on everything that I'm doing to get this bike to the way I want it. A lot of carbon fiber, you know, some tuning, and to get the bike exactly how we like it. So now I'm going to start by talking about the ZX6R, the things that I liked about it versus the ZX10. And then I'm going to go back and forth talking about both of them. So the ZX6R, in comparison with the ZX10, I'm going to say number one, the looks. I personally like the ZX6R better than the ZX10, the way that it looked. The tail of the ZX6 was just a little bit longer, more sleek. I just felt it was like more of a nimble bike, and that's another point that I have here. It was just a little bit like, the best way I can describe it is kind of an athletic build versus like a kind of like a short buff kind of build, if that makes any sense at all. But yeah, so that's number one. I did like the ZX6R versus the ZX10 for looks. The looks I thought were better. Number two, now this is, again, all these things are comparing a 16 ZX6 to a ZX10 16 as well. I don't understand why the ZX6 had projectors and the ZX10 does not have projectors. It kind of boggles my mind that my ZX6 had projectors and now I have a ZX10 and it doesn't have projectors. When you think ZX10, you think that, you know, it's going to be the premier, the premier bike, but it doesn't have any projectors. I don't understand it. Okay, but that's one positive of the ZX6. It had projectors in the head. Now, when I say projectors, I'm talking about the projectors in the headlights. Back to the other point, the ZX6 was a more nimble bike. For getting into tight spaces, cutting through traffic, lane splitting, which of course we don't ever do that stuff. But just saying, it was very, to me, it felt very, very, it was a very nimble, slim bike that you can easily cut through. Next thing I got on here is the ZX6 had just enough power. It wasn't underpowered, especially how, we had ours tuned, it was flash unrestricted, so it definitely wasn't lazy on the throttle. Throttle response was really good, and, it was just, I put on here, it's just enough power. I never got bored of that bike. And I rode that bike for 2 years. I never really got bored of it. This bike, I just had an opportunity to acquire this bike at a very reasonable price, so I jumped on it. But aside from that, I could have kept the ZX6 for a few more years and would have never have gotten tired of it. Brings me to the next point, which is confidence. I haven't ridden, because it's winter, I rode this bike a few times. I was very confident on the ZX6. And this bike, I just feel that I'm not as confident on it yet. And part of that could just be that, you know, just I just have to ride it more. I need more seat time to get more confident with it. But I felt I was more confident on the ZX6. And then this is going to be for me because I just had that bike completely set up for myself. I mean, I had throttle lock cruise control on it. You know, the bars were set up for myself. The suspension was set up for me. Everything was just fine-tuned. You know, I had my phone stand. I had a USB for my phone charger that I put in there. I had, you know, my alarm system. I had everything set up on that bike to just be for me. So, you know, I was really comfortable with it. And I'm going to have to do a lot of that stuff to get this bike to a point where I'm that comfortable with it, okay? Now, for negatives on the ZX6, I really couldn't think of much, to be honest with you. I love that bike. That bike was perfect in pretty much most ways. Now, this one negative that I put for the ZX6 is also going to be a negative for the ZX10, and that's going to be no fuel gauge. Come on, Kawasaki. It's a 2016. These are 2016 bikes. Put a damn fuel gauge in it. It just has the light comes on for low light, low gas. And aside from that, you don't know how much gas you have. You have to open the gas tank like it's 1980 and look inside to see if there's gas in it or switch the bike around. Come on, guys. Okay, now we're going to move on to the ZX10R. So positives about it is power. Number one is power, and lots of power. This thing literally, it's scary fast. It's time. You get the time warping feeling when you're on this thing. You know, it's that fast. It's a super fast bike. And that's the crazy thing is that we haven't even tuned this bike yet. It has a crappy power commander on there with a tune, which I don't even think the bike is running right, and it's still so fast. So when we do what we have to do to this bike and get it tuned, and you know, it's just gonna be unbelievably fast, and the throttle response is gonna be crazy. I know that for a fact. So, yeah, I think that, you know, the power is just insane on this bike. Next, I put sound. Positives, the sound is just insane for this bike. I love how the bike sounds. You know, it's really a good sounding bike. The ZX6 sounded really nice as well. I wish I had that bike still. I sold it. I should have made this video when I had both so I could do a side-to-side comparison. But, you know, that one's gone. But this thing sounds way better than the ZX6, even though the ZX6 sounded amazing. So sound is amazing on the 1000. Obviously, better brakes and suspension. This thing has show up, you know, some suspension. It has Brembo brakes on it. So the brakes suspension is way upgraded on the ZX10 for the additional power. So yes, and then also it has a from the factory stabilizer. So the stabilizer is nice. That's a positive. More potential I put for the next one. So there's a lot of there's a big platform for these bikes. I mean, you know, it is a super bike, so there's so much you can do to this bike, and it's just like, you know, never-ending potential with these bikes. Whereas the ZX6, it's possible, but who's going to put that much money into a 600? But when you put that much into a 1000, it kind of makes sense, you know. So that's one thing as well. Cooler gauges. The ZX10 has some pretty cool gauges. I like how, you know, it has the nice sweep for the RPM. It's nice. The gauges are nicer on the ZX10 than the ZX6. In addition, it has some cool mirrors. The signal mirrors. The signals are in the mirror. It's kind of a nice feature. I usually keep one mirror folded up and ride with one mirror down. But that's a nice feature as well. All right, guys. Before I forgot one thing that's a positive on the ZX10 versus the ZX6. The ZX10 comes factory with a quick shifter. Now, the reason I forgot to mention that is because mine is not working correctly. So hopefully when we tune the bike, we'll get that squared away. It has a power commander on it, which I'm going to be removing, and we're gonna flash the ECU. So that is one positive, that the bike does have a quick shifter on it, which the ZX6 does not have. Now, once you tune it from the factory, it's not really that good, but I have heard that once you do tune the quick shifter, it actually is very, very nice to have. So now we're going to talk some negatives about the ZX10. ZX10, I put here slightly heavier. Now, it's not a big difference when you talk about weight difference between the ZX6 and the ZX10. It is slightly heavier. I mean, I can hardly, to be honest, notice it when I'm riding it. As soon as it rolls off, obviously you don't notice anything, but you know, just getting to the point where you roll off, slightly heavier. We talked about the next one already, but no projectors. Come on, Kawasaki. It doesn't have projectors in the headlights. I find that annoying. I put this as a negative. I don't know if it really is, but I just put too much unusable power. I ride like about 80% in the city. This bike will never see its potential with me riding it, because we just don't have that much open roads here in the city that I'm in. And you know, we take it out on the highway in the country once in a while, and this bike will never see its full potential with me riding in the city. So the ZX6 was plenty enough for me, because I was, you know, like I said, 80% of my riding is in the city, and a 600 is more than enough for city riding. But if you can get the 1000, then why the hell not, right? All right, last but not least, I talked about this earlier, but you know, this one is slightly more wider. It is a little bit fatter, I would say. So, you know, squeezing through tight spots is a little bit harder on the 1000 than it is, you know, I would say on the ZX6. It's not as nimble, you know, even in the turns, which I haven't really, you know, gotten this thing on a lot of turns, but it's not as nimble as the ZX6 would be in turns and whatnot. So overall, what's the takeaway? Takeaway, I would say that the ZX6 is more than enough bike for 90% of the people. You really don't need more than a ZX6R. Really in any other brand, 600 is more than enough. If you can afford, or if you have a good deal on 1000, then it's an experience, you know, and I'm excited for this experience that I'm going to have in the upcoming season. But I feel the 600 is more than enough. 1000 is really overkill, especially if you're a city rider like me. 1000 it really is overkill. But since we got it, we're going to make the best of it. Power difference, it's night and day. Night and day power difference from the ZX6 to the ZX10R. There's way more power. Now, is that to say, like, if I'm riding with a 600 rider, you know, they're not going to even be able to keep up with me? Again, not really. You know, if we're just doing city riding, if we're just riding around town, we're going to be right around, you know, they're going to be keeping up with me, you know. It's not like I'm just going to be so far out that if we go to the highways and this and that, then yes, of course. In the top end, it's not going to even be a challenge. It's not going to even be they're not going to be able to keep up with me then. But riding around 90% of the time, it's going to be comparable. They're going to be able to keep up with me. So guys, that's what I have. Let me know in the comments, what did you find the difference was when you went up from a 600 to 1000, or maybe you're thinking of upgrading from the 600 to the 1000. So, you know, if you have any questions, feel free to ask us. And guys, make sure you turn on the notifications, like and subscribe, because we're going to be doing some build videos on this. We got a bunch of carbon fiber that's coming for it. It's already ordered. I got some, you know, the tie down strap, a bunch of things we're doing. We're going to be sending the computer out to get flashed. So definitely like and subscribe. And until next time, peace.